Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson of World Alternative Media here, and lots of news with the economy lately. I want to get to this article regarding gold, which, as a Zero Hedge article says, gold has outperformed the stock market over the last year. Well, duh. So this tells you that no matter how much you see the stock market propped up, pushed to the brink with fake money that's flowing into the markets as the Fed prints ridiculous amounts of money and creates a even further artificial stock market, which has been artificial for a long time, but they're really going all out right now. All-time highs. That's a bubble, and a lot of people are, especially institutional investors, are noticing that, taking notice, and getting into gold. And we've seen that as well with, for example, private ownership, which is skyrocketing lately, and I think it's almost 50-50 for the first time in a very long time anyway. But as this article goes into, and I'll get back into it a bit more in a moment, as the article goes into, for more than a year, I've been strongly encouraging readers to consider buying gold, says author Simon Black of SovereignMan.com. In fact, almost exactly 1 year ago to the day, I wrote that gold was cheap relative to just about every other asset class in the world. Since then, gold has been one of the best performing investments in the world, certainly over the last month. Otherwise, before that, it was one of the worst performing ones, to be honest. But that was because of vast market manipulation. Anyway, as the article continues, over the last 12 months, the price of gold is up 18.8%, handily outperforming everything from the S&P 500 index in the US to stock markets in China, Europe, and Canada, plus bonds, real estate, and even major commodities like oil. And you can see the chart there. Continuing on, it says, gold has even outpaced the stock prices many of the world's most popular tech investments like Netflix, Tesla, Amazon, etc. One of the more interesting exceptions has been Bitcoin, which has more than doubled in value over the last 12 months. We'll talk about that another time. But while gold's investment performance has been great, I want to tell you today why that doesn't matter one bit to me. According to data published by the World Gold Council, in the last quarter alone, both retail investors and a number of large hedge funds have been piling into gold. That's certainly been one factor driving prices higher, but to be frank, that sort of demand is extremely fickle, and there's no doubt. I mean, we're seeing, they'd be stupid not to. George Soros got to put a ton of his money into gold. It's just a lot of these master manipulators are going to try and back themselves up because they know that their wealth is doomed if they do not. Carrying on, it says, the WGC data show that most small investors are buying into gold ETFs, which, as I've explained previously, is probably the dumbest way to own gold. Absolutely, no question about it. Paper gold? Come on, why wouldn't you just own the gold? As it continues, gold ETF buyers are not long-term investors. They'll most likely sell the minute gold prices start to fall. Hedge fund managers won't hesitate to sell either, especially if they need to boost their quarterly returns. So long-term gold prices won't be driven higher by fickle investor demand. The real demand that's worth watching comes from foreign governments and central banks, institutions with such a heavy appetite that they buy gold by the metric ton. In the third quarter of this year, Turkey bought 71 metric tons of gold. Serbia bought 9 metric tons of gold in the month of October alone. Poland doubled its reserves last year, and China has been gobbling up not only gold, but gold miners too. You see that in Africa too, but that's their IMF agenda. Anyway, as it carries on here, it says, it's critical to understand that foreign governments and central banks tend to be buyers of gold. They're rarely sellers. In fact, up until very recently, there was even an agreement among some of the world's largest central banks to not sell their gold in order to ensure price stability. And according to freshly minted international banking regulations, gold is now considered to be a zero-risk asset for central banks and large financial institutions. This is important because a number of central banks and foreign governments are really looking for alternatives to diversify away from the US dollar. Absolutely, there's a lot of faith lost in the US dollar, and that's the only thing keeping it up. And it's crazy because there's a lot of swapping, even Saudi Arabia to a degree, and we see China in a coalition with Russia, Iran, Syria, even the Philippines to an extent. As it carries on here, as it says, right now, the US dollar is still the world's most popular reserve asset, meaning that just about every foreign government, central bank, and large commercial bank on the planet holds US dollars. China alone has trillions of US dollars in reserves. Absolutely, they're still banking on it 100%. But for the past 20 years or so, the US government has increasingly used its currency, economy, and financial system as a weapon to threaten foreign countries. If you cross the U.S. government, you're threatened with sanctions, tariffs, and all sorts of financial penalties. And I'll break away for a second and say there's more than that. Ask Gaddafi or Saddam Hussein. I'm not saying they're good people, but I mean, that's how you end up assassinated and your country overthrown in a coup propped up by the West with Western-funded rebels that turn into ISIS. Anyway, as it continues, think about it. With so many problems and disputes looming, why would a country like China continue accumulating U.S. dollar reserves? It doesn't make any sense. And that's why so many countries are starting to stockpile gold instead. It's the best alternative to U.S. dollars, and they're buying up as much as they can. These foreign governments and central banks do tend to report their gold purchases, but it would be remarkably naive for us to assume they've given us a full story. Absolutely. Though, by the way, Canada sold off all of its gold a couple years ago, and I confronted Canadian Finance Minister Bill Morneau on that back in 2016, where he said that gold didn't really hold any value. And I'm like, well, tell the consumers that. Anyway, as it continues here, it says, why would China willingly tell the world precisely how much gold they're accumulating? There is absolutely no benefit for them to be transparent, so the real numbers could be far, far greater than what the official statistics say. This is ultimately what's going to keep driving long-term gold demand. And as it continues here, individual investors and even big hedge funds will come and go, but foreign governments and central banks are very likely to continue hedging against the dollar, and gold is literally the only sensible alternative right now. This is definitely going to have a positive impact on the gold price, but it doesn't guarantee higher gold prices over the next year or two. Roughly half of all gold demand comes from industry, primarily tech, manufacturing, and jewelry. And both of these will take a big hit in the next global recession, which could cause the gold price to fall. And that's the point I want to convey today. Yes, it's possible to make money with gold, but frankly, there are far more lucrative potential speculations out there, including gold miners. If you bought gold today and the price soared to $3,000, you'd double your money. But if you bought shares in a gold exploration company that discovers a huge gold deposit, your shares could increase in value by 2,000%. Of course, yeah, but that's more risk, man. As it continues here in bold, it says the decision to own gold should never be about the investment gain. Gold is a hedge against uncertainties and risks, and there are a lot of those in the world. True enough. I mean, it shouldn't be an investment, and we'll get back into that in a moment. As it continues, it says, we gladly buy insurance policies to protect our homes, cars, boats, and businesses against various risks. Plus, we buy life insurance, liability insurance, and disability insurance to protect our families against the unknowns. This is a great way to think about gold. It's like a private, fully redeemable insurance policy with steady cash value and zero counterparty risk. And when combined with a properly structured retirement plan, it can be very tax efficient. So I want to get into this a bit with all of you guys here. First of all, finishing that article off there, he's saying something that's definitely true, that gold is wealth insurance. It's not meant as an investment. You can invest in ETFs and all that kind of stuff, paper contracts and derivatives and all that kind of stuff. But it's not really right. When the stock markets go down, I actually don't think gold is going to go down when the stock markets go down. We might see a temporary dip, but overall, we're going to see a lot of people trying to cushion the blow as much as possible because they're not going to be holding U.S. dollars under their mattress, constantly turning into Zimbabwean notes or Venezuelan notes or Weimar notes. They're going to be compiling gold and silver probably and cryptocurrency as a hedge. And I think that goes without saying. Now, I want to note that for years, especially since 2012, we've seen vast gold manipulation. But going back even further, when FDR took the gold in the early 1930s, much of that gold was used to fund the Exchange Stabilization Fund, which still to this day manipulates gold. The rest of it being used to fund the IMF. Of course, our friend Anthony Blanchard, his father got gold back into the hands of the people in the 1970s, right in time for the gold standard to end. But I do want to add that we've seen that manipulation, especially since 2012 when we saw a bull market coming in. And of course, they were trying to paper over the recession, which we're still in, by the way, trying to paper it over as much as they can out of fear that they were going to, see everyone flood into gold and ditch the US dollar. At the time, Bitcoin wasn't as prevalent, though it definitely did well in the crisis following into 2012 and forward. But I felt that basically it was these big banks that were pumping and dumping and manipulating the price of gold, spoofing the markets. We saw that with Deutsche Bank, HSBC, PNB Paribas, and all sorts of different banks, Scotiabank, and they got caught red-handed in court, and then Deutsche Bank took the fall. And obviously, Deutsche Bank has been in a tailspin since 2008, so they haven't been doing too well themselves. But it's been a very spoof market, gold and silver, and I think it's very manipulated. But when the banks go down, it's kind of like holding a beach ball underwater and then letting that beach ball go, and that beach ball is going to bounce up. Now, we're going to see, obviously, great fluctuation in the wealth insurance. That's going to result in probably gold falling off a cliff for a small amount of time, leading into the uncertainty, and then we're going to see some revival down the line. But again, this wasn't ever about wealth or investments. It was about wealth insurance, about holding gold and silver in order to hedge yourself against the coming crises. But I do want to also note that the value of gold comes from the scarcity, application, use, and demand. So from scarcity, there's not a lot of it, and it's in demand. So at the same time, you have that demand, but it's also used in electronics, and it's also held as precaution, and it's utilized in jewelry and all sorts of stuff. The jewelry industry isn't going to be doing super great in the fall of an economy, but we're still going to see a lot of electronics in this hyper electronic world, and also we're going to see it utilized in a lot of gear, and people are going to be piling it up, and we're seeing private ownership skyrocketing, as I mentioned. At the same time, we're going to see people utilizing cryptocurrencies, obviously, as anyone would, because you can make transactions worldwide with cryptocurrency much easier than shaving off slices of gold and weighing it, though there are things like Anthem Gold and Hyatt Gold, etc., that allow you to shift gold from one place to another on the blockchain, etc. But nonetheless, I think that cryptocurrency is going to be decentralized, hopefully, not touched by the government, completely fundamentally useful cryptocurrencies and innovative technologies, blockchain infrastructure technology, all that kind of stuff is going to be utilized to the max. And again, based on scarcity, application, use, and demand. So I am looking forward to the solutions. I think there's more solutions than there are problems, but also I'm sick of seeing so many people get so taken advantage of. We're still seeing people lining up for subprime lending and all this craziness. And I have to say, it concerns me because it tells me that people haven't learned from the past. And people say, oh, you've been calling for the crash forever. And it's like, yeah, and I've been right forever. As I've said the whole time, it isn't about it happening tomorrow. You can't put a date on the collapse. It's been pushed off way longer than it should have already. It's just basic economics. Every fiat currency eventually reverts to zero, and if you're printing vast amounts to prop up the stock market on top of that, then you're going to see a massive bubble, and even the best company stocks are going to fall with the fall of the stock market. I mean, Amazon went down during the dot-com bubble as well, just like cryptocurrency went down during the crypto bubble, like Bitcoin versus all these you-know-what coins, crap coins, I'll say. So I think that's important to note. Don't allow yourself to be taken advantage of. A populace in debt is a populace in servitude, and they shove people down a bottomless pit of debt, forcing them to ask for a ladder up from the government and the banking system, pushing you into perfect servitude, and that's exactly where they want you, and you need to break free from that, folks. And again, people are going to say, well, you can't eat gold, you can't eat silver, you can't eat crypto. Of course you can, though. You can utilize it to buy things for food instead of becoming a savage. You're not going to be able to harvest things regularly because people have been made super dependent and stupid and weak over the years, generally speaking. I'm not saying all of you, but we've seen that ourselves. Millennial generation, boomer generation, etc. But also, we need to note that, it comes down to responsibility. So it's food, water, shelter, self-defense. You're not gathering things for the toughest guy on the block. And the gold and silver are forms of wealth insurance, and cryptocurrency is a way to, spend money quick with the tap of a phone. And that kind of stuff. I think that's really important. Break free from the blockchain infrastructure that the banks are putting out in the governments, like the cashless societies that are centrally planned via the banks, the banking system. So again, as I mentioned before, if your money's in the bank, it's not yours as the bank's. If your money's always going to the banks via digital transactions and legal tender laws, your money's never yours. It's always the bank's, and you are essentially a slave to the banking system. So be your own bank and break free from that. And a lot of cryptocurrencies provide solutions. Gold and silver provide solutions. Diversification provides solutions. And again, this is my opinion, not investment advice, and it wasn't ever meant to be investment in the first place. So anyway, I want people to keep all that in mind, and hedge themselves against what's coming, because it's going to happen. It's always has to. It's inevitable. You cannot put it off. It's been propped up so much that the more they prop it up, the more it's going to come down on people, and the more people are going to be affected. So be responsible, independent, and free. Anyway, stop being a slave, decentralize your life, and live by example. Live by your free intentions. Until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change. Like what you see here at Wham, don't forget to check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. We cannot do it without you guys. Every donation is extremely, extremely appreciated as we're getting incredibly shadow banned. We've lost 80% of our audience since January of 2019 and counting. They are ripping us apart here on YouTube, and the only thing we could do in the meantime as we prepare for the next big step is to ask for help from the viewers that support our free information that we try to post on a daily basis. You can also find us on Subscribestar, where just $1 a month, that's all it takes, $1 a month is all it takes to truly make a huge difference. If everyone gave $1 a month, it would change everything for independent media, and we could win this information war, and we can defeat the mainstream medias eventually. And of course, on Subscribestar, we post subscriber-only content that you'll only see on Subscribestar. So make sure to pledge there, become a patron. That makes a huge difference, guys. And also, don't forget to check out our Bitcoin address below in the comments and description, as well as on the screen for you to scan if you please. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on the alternatives. We will likely be deleted by YouTube in the next 2 years. It's already happening on a vast scale, so make sure to find us on float.app. That's flote.app. at Josh Sigurdson, as well as at Wham, W-A-M. Float.app is replacing every social media, and I mean, it's just incredible the opportunities it provides for not just creators, but for the average person who wants to get away from these nannies telling them what they can or cannot see. They plan to replace Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, Tumblr, Reddit, and Patreon. You could subscribe to us on Float and pledge with cryptocurrency. It's really innovative. We are also on BitChute at World Alternative Media, as well as so many others, Minds, PocketNet. You can find us at World Alternative Media on Instagram. There's many options. And finally, don't forget to join us at Anarchapulco 2020, the famous event, the best liberty event known to mankind, other than perhaps Anarcho Vegas 2020. There are 2 major events coming up that we are extremely excited about, and you can use promo code WHAM, that's W-A-M, and save 10% on your tickets to these legendary conferences. There's so many amazing people speaking there. You won't want to miss it. So make sure to support in any way you can, even if it's just sharing our videos, pressing like, pressing to be notified. Anything helps, folks. You are the change you wish to see. Thanks for watching, everyone. And until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.
I'm sure you have already changed people's minds in your young age because you're involved, and I like that.
Wow.